Good morning, Pittsburgh. You're listening to Maximize Living Radio. I'm Dr. Alex Pattison on air with Dr. Aaron Greiner. And as always this morning, we're here to teach you, to inspire you, and to coach you to your maximize living potential. We had lots of feedback from last week's show, so we're going to keep that steam rolling. We're going to continue to discuss autoimmune conditions this morning and how you can naturally begin to overcome to allow your body to heal. Now, the problem with an autoimmune condition is that oftentimes it can take up to a decade to receive the diagnosis, and symptoms generally start as mild and then increase slowly over time. It's not uncommon for an individual to see up to a dozen different doctors, different specialists before even getting diagnosed with their autoimmune condition. So if you or a loved one have an autoimmune condition that is effects are just being devastating on you, one of the main culprits for this and for an autoimmune condition is oftentimes a systemic effect affecting multiple organ systems at the same time. So an individual may have a thyroid condition that's also associated with a gastrointestinal problem, with a skin problem. The other issues that we see is perhaps right now you haven't officially gotten that diagnosis, but you're dealing with concerns when it comes to your health, which are devastating, and you're not able to seek those answers from your health professionals. Here's some underlying symptomatology that an individual may be suffering with, which is an indication that you are dealing with an underlying autoimmune condition. Those are things like headaches, anxiety, ADD or ADHD, rashes, acne, problems with the skin, a dry mouth, frequent colds, fatigue, weight gain or weight loss, muscle pain or weakness, or gastrointestinal issues. If you're dealing with those issues, there is an indication, there is a strong chance that you may be dealing with an underlying autoimmune condition, and we're going to leave no stone unturned this morning to unveil to you how to allow your body to heal. You can't afford to miss a single second of this morning's program. And you're listening to Maximize Living Radio. That was Dr. Aaron Greiner. I'm Dr. Alex Pattison. We're discussing autoimmune conditions this morning and how you can begin to allow your body to naturally heal from these very debilitating disease processes. And I think, we would be remiss if we're talking about autoimmune conditions and we didn't just spend a few moments talking about what seems to be about 1/3 of the women over the age of 40 years old who are walking into our clinic right now suffering from, and that's a problem with the thyroid. If we take a look roughly of where we're at, 40% of the American population suffers from some sort of a low thyroid function. Older women, unfortunately, are most susceptible to a problem with the thyroid, but also those individuals that are already suffering from a pre-existing autoimmune condition. Again, when the immune system goes rogue and it begins to attacking itself and recognizing itself as foreign, one of the first organ systems that's affected is the thyroid. And this will become very problematic because your thyroid is hugely important and vital for not only weight loss and metabolism, but your thyroid is literally controlling every major physiological process inside of your body. Poor thyroid functions are right now linked to fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, acne, eczema, infertility issues, and the list just goes on and on and on. So it's really important that we understand, A, that what this organ does inside of our body, and B, how to naturally overcome problems with it if we're currently suffering from an underactive or an overactive thyroid condition. Now, when you go to your medical doctor, most of the time the tests that are run is to look at your T3 levels, your T4 levels, and your TSH levels, your thyroid stimulating hormone levels. And while these are important, it is only a scratch on the surface of truly understanding what's going on with the thyroid to allow that thyroid to heal. So what we encourage our practice members to do in the community to do is, yes, we need to be looking for answers with this thyroid. But oftentimes, simply fixing the blood work is nowhere near enough to truly allow the body to overcome and allow the body to heal. What we see as a major player and a major influencer in thyroid health are two things: poor digestive system health, or what the catchphrase is right now, what the sexy phrase is right now, is a leaky gut. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want to spend a few moments talking about toxicity. The thyroid is a gland, and all glands in the body have a high affinity for toxins. We live in an extremely toxic world. I was reading some research that the other day that the average industrialized woman, the average woman living in Pittsburgh right now, is exposed to 126 different harmful chemicals before she even leaves her bathroom bathroom in the morning. So I just want you to imagine how inundated we are in our society with the toxins that we're ingesting, that we're breathing in, that we're consuming in our food supply, that we're putting on our body through cosmetics and different beauty products and things of that line. So it's really important that we understand how to efficiently detox our body, and it's even more important that we as Pittsburghers begin to understand that. If you've listened to our show for any amount of time, you know I always bring to light how toxic Pittsburgh is, from the air that we breathe to the water that we consume. Just go home. If you're listening to us right now on your computer, which I know a lot of people are doing, check out scorecard.org, pump in your zip code to that, and what you're going to find out is that Pittsburgh is in the worst 10th percentile in terms of toxicity, from the air that we're breathing to the water that we're consuming. And this has drastic negative effects on the thyroid, on our metabolism, and on our overall health. I just want to go ahead and capitalize a little bit on what you were going through there, Dr. Aaron, just so our listeners can really understand the gist of the importance and the profound statements that you just made. Oftentimes when we go to a medical professional for an autoimmune condition, let's use the thyroid for an example, medications are given to try to mimic thyroid function inside of the body, or to try to confuse that thyroid into functioning the way that it should. And really, when it comes down to it, this is what all medication does, is it doesn't get into the body to get to the cause of a problem. It simply palliates symptoms and puts a big Band-Aid over a big problem. When it comes to an autoimmune condition, whether we're dealing with a thyroid condition, whether we're dealing with a digestive condition, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, what we want to do is we want to get to the cause of it. And autoimmune conditions by nature is caused by an imbalance between what's called the gut-brain axis. I'm going to spend a few moments discussing that, talking about the digestive system's role in an autoimmune condition and how a problem with your digestive system has negative effects throughout the body. What happens when we're dealing with an autoimmune condition is that our gut becomes leaky, which means that it doesn't protect us from the environment, from the foods, from the toxins that we were talking about earlier, the way that it should. And when that happens, when we begin to develop this leaky gut, pathogens, microbes, food particles begin to leak out of the digestive system and into the internal system of the body, which creates an immune response. And as that body is chronically under an immune response by recognizing these things as foreign, it begins to attack its own body systems by depending which microbes and which biological markers pass through the digestive system and into the blood. So a problem with a leaky gut can have effects everywhere else throughout the body. When we begin to allow things like gluten to pass through the digestive system, it creates a big problem, because not only do we have a leaky gut, but that can actually now begin to affect the blood-brain barrier and get past the protective mechanisms the body has in place to allow these microbes to attack the brain. And that can lead to things like depression, anxiety, ADD, and ADHD. It can affect the sinuses and the mouth, which can lead to frequent colds, food insensitivities where you suddenly can't eat anything anymore because you're allergic to it. It can affect the joints from things like rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, headaches when it's affecting the joints in the upper cervical spine, the top part of your neck. When it affects the adrenals, it leads to fatigue. When it affects the colon and the digestive system, that can lead to constipation, diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome. As it affects the thyroid, like we were talking about earlier, it could lead to Hashimoto's disease, hypothyroid, Graves' disease, or it can begin to affect the skin and lead to things like acne, rosacea, eczema, and psoriasis. So when we develop this leaky gut, and when we have an imbalance between the gut-brain axis, it has drastic effects throughout the body, driving autoimmune conditions. So how do we do that? How do we rectify that? How do we heal that? We need to get to the underlying cause of our autoimmune condition, understand this gut-brain axis so that we can go to work to allow the body to heal. There's really 5 things that we're going to be discussing at these workshops right here in Pittsburgh in the next couple of weeks that cause a leaky gut. The first is poor diet, the food choices that you're making. Oftentimes, the things that you're thinking of as quote-unquote health foods destroy the gut and lead to this permeability. Chronic stress from the modern world that we live in. Toxins, as we were talking about earlier, is a major causative factor of a leaky gut. Dysbiosis, which is a fancy clinical term from improper gut flora, where you don't have enough good bacteria and you have too many bad bacteria. And finally, since we were talking about that gut-brain axis, a neurological problem in your nervous system that's causing that gut to become porous. To give you a general idea of how delicate this system is, when we're dealing with the gut permeability, we should be looking at roughly between 10 to 15 angstroms of space between the cells in your gut, which is millions of times smaller than the head of a pin. So we're dealing with a very intricate system, and an imbalance in either your diet, your stress, the toxins you're exposed to, the bacteria and the flora inside of your gut, or a neurological condition can open those pores up, allow bad things to pass through, and begin to drive the causative factors of your autoimmune condition. And there's no medication on the face of the planet that's able to correct this problem with the gut-brain axis. This becomes your problem. So if you're dealing with an autoimmune condition, you have two choices. You can either A, continue to take the medications that you're taking and allow that immune system to continue to destroy your body and its organ systems, or you can get to the underlying causes and fix that. And exactly that's what we're going to be teaching at Autoimmune Answers coming up in just a few short weeks right here in Pittsburgh in Monday, March 27th in the South Hills at 6:30 p.m. at Gianna Villa's Family Restaurant. And God bless Pittsburgh. We hope to see you at one of these events, and let's make this city the healthiest on the face of the planet. Be sure to tune in again next week.